Hey there, welcome back to another episode of The Travel Creator. I'm Laura, I'm a content developer for travel creators, and I make your life more fun so you can have more time on the beach and less time creating content. If you want to know the ways I serve travel creators, head on over to Instagram at Travel Content Writing. Have you ever considered that maybe your travel content could be causing tourism that is an issue? How insane is that thought? In this episode with Champi, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of travel, and this was no, we're not getting into the nitty-gritty of travel. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of some of the consequences travel content can have in real life. And I think that is overall so interesting, and I'm so excited for you to meet Champi. She is such a gem, and I hope you enjoy.
So I'm Champi, and I'm a Mexican travel creator and photographer based now in Mexico. And I have been traveling extensively in my country for the past 4 years and a half. And I love creating content for different brands related to tourism that are more into the conscious and mindful side of things. And I also help plan itineraries and travels around the country with a mindful approach. When I was here finally living back in Mexico, in a way I was thinking like, wow, I feel I'm from here. I grew up most of my life here, but I don't really know my country that much. So I want to dive into that. And then it became like this mind-blowing experience for me, like knowing like, wow, there's so many things, even in my hometown, my state, then the surrounding states and everything. Like, why am I wanting to go abroad so much when there's so much here? So I've been really, like loving having these experiences and getting to know all of the different cultures that Mexico has. And it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful to be able to immerse yourself in a country that has so much.
It's also just massive. There's so much to see. It is so large.
And it changes so drastically from one place to the other.
Yeah.
So it's like from food. The food is kind of very similar in places, but it changes so much. And then everybody speaks Spanish mostly, but then there's also these languages that are from different regions. So then you go to other places and the way of life and the way they do things, their traditions, their culture is different everywhere. And it's been really beautiful to learn about this. Like, I think it's one of my favorite things now. I'm like, oh, I just want to know more about what's around Mexico.
If you're listening to this, it's likely that you have been creating travel content about a lot of different places you have been. But if for some reason you wanted to start a new account or focus on a new niche or a new area, what if you just started with places that are close by to you to make them cool and unique? Even if you think your hometown is boring, I promise you can find something there to share about. Similar to if you started doing UGC content. Why don't you already start with the products that you have and use and love to add to your portfolio? If you're starting something new, I would encourage you to not freak out about trying to find all of the clients to do all of the things right away and just start with what's around you. Especially if you're trying new forms of content creation. Maybe you want to create like a new series or something, or you want to get yourself on video. Just start small. Everybody's first video, first podcast, first whatever is going to be bad. You just got to do it a billion times to get better. Oh my gosh. Okay. If someone was like, hey, I've never been to Mexico before, and they have a week, what should they do?
It's so hard for me to say this because it really depends what you want,
Okay.
If it's nature, there's something very specific. If it's culture, if it's food. But I normally always go back to my 4 favorite spots, which is impossible to do them in 1 week. But I always say, choose at least one of these 4 that I think are so rich in so many things. One is Baja California Sur, which is the Baja Peninsula.
I've heard amazing things. Yes.
Oh my God, it's amazing. Amazing. So if you love nature, wildlife, surreal landscapes, like there's desert and mountains and then right next to the sea, and there's whales if you come in the migration. So it's mind-blowing. The food is amazing.
Yeah.
And I really love this area. Like we always try to go at least once a year because we're obsessed with it. And then there's another region that if you love nature and wildlife and also cultural things, It's called Huasteca Potosina. And it's
Okay.
a very, very unknown region of Mexico. There's no one there except for like Christmas season and things like that for locals. But it's this place that has so many waterfalls and lakes and mountains, and it's half jungle and forest. And then they have beautiful traditions from like indigenous communities. For example, here, Day of the Dead is very different from the rest of the country, and it has to do a lot more with nature. So
Mm.
their rituals and traditions are very rooted to nature, and they do things in the waterfalls and they do things around in the forest to celebrate death.
Wow, that's cool.
It's incredible. This is another region that I always go to, and I was supposed to go next week, so we're thinking still on that. But it's beautiful, a beautiful, beautiful place, and you get to swim in the waterfalls, and it's this pristine place of Mexico with nothing. Like there's hardly hotels or anything. You mostly have to do camping, and it's very beautiful. I also always say, like my region where I live in, which is the state of Guanajuato, there's not that much nature because it's like desert landscape. But if you love cities with a lot of history and colonial architecture and beautiful towns, incredible festivals and traditions, it's a great place to be too. And the food is amazing. And
Mm.
especially my city. My city is amazing, amazing. It's like this artistic hub and food hub and so many, like there's this blend of modern things with a lot of ancient indigenous traditions. So it's a very unique place in the country because a lot of places it's not as conserved as here. So it's a very good mix
This is
of.
good to know. This is
Mhm.
good to know. I'm so glad that Baja is as good as it seems. I'm always like, I see so many people who travel there, and I'm like, well, so many people are going, so it must be cool, but is it really that amazing? So that's great. Okay, it's still on my bucket list then.
Amazing. And I always recommend going for the winter because then you have all of these whale migrations. There's every type of whale there. So it's crazy what you get to experience when you're in the water. I don't know. Like I was like, I cannot believe this is in Mexico. What is this place?
Yeah.
It's so diverse.
How long have you been creating content?
So before I started creating content, I used to work in the film industry and I worked with that for 5 years. And then it was this transition back in 2018 that I wanted to, okay, I love traveling, I love photography and videography. So I want to do something more related to content creation. And I started doing this in the end of 2018. But it was
Okay.
mostly like just creating things for myself. I was not sharing with anyone. I was not a social media person at all. So I started actually opening this Instagram page and doing content creation to show more like my family and my friends the things that we were doing because we were traveling so much. And so I officially started more into content creation, I'd say in end of 2019.
This has
I
been a
never
long
thought
time.
it would be anything to do with what I would do in my life. It was more like a hobby or something.
Right.
I love it.
How have you found community in connecting with other creators? Like 5 years is a long time. That's a long time to be creating community. How has it been building a community for that long?
So when I actually started taking the content creation thing more seriously, I really think it was like, if I really think about it, it was 2022.
Hmm.
And that's when I started reaching out to people and being like, okay, there has to be something more in here. Like, it's not just a page where you share stuff. Like, there must be a community and people that like it. And ever since I started doing that, I felt that was the switch of really loving this because the people, like, there's so many incredible women and men that connect with you that have these similar interests. And then you get to connect beyond the platform, because sometimes you see, I don't know, the handle or the profile of somebody, but then there's this person behind it. And when you connect and you share tips and opinions and just about life, because I have created many friends through it, but also this part of creating a community that loves what you do, that is very invested in the content that you create. You start seeing like it's not you, the only person that is interested in creating a community, but the people who are in your community really want to be part of what you're doing. And I think that's very beautiful because then you realize, okay, I am creating this, but I am also listening to what my community wants me to create for them or what they're interested in. So in a way, it's not just your page, like it's this community-led creation in a way that you start connecting and doing things together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by doing that, you start connecting more personally and in a more deep way to other creators and other people that love traveling or that love the values and the themes that you talk about. And I think that has been the most incredible thing of having a page focused on travel content creation. Because I don't know, sometimes I felt it was hard to have people or connect with people that had similar interests. And then you go into this and you know that you start seeing there's so many people that love this the same way that you do. And just nurturing these relationships creates this beautiful community out of something that you create. And it's so beautiful.
I mean, when you look back and think about it, when you are building something and then people respond to it in a positive way, there's like no better feeling because you're the only one responsible for creating that. That is crazy. Did you have any sort of strategies? Maybe that's not the right word, but anything you would do to try and grow more of a community. And by that, I mean, not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to post 3 reels a week to grow my audience. Like, okay, not necessarily what I mean, but by community, I mean, you can probably think of 10 creators off the top of your head when I'm like, hey, who's in your community online? Is there anything you feel like you did specifically to try and get, like you said, you've made friends doing this. Is there anything you've done to try that you feel like this has been really helpful in helping me grow my community? And maybe it's just reaching out to people or like leaving genuine comments. Have you done
I
anything
think
strategic like that?
I think I didn't really made it strategically at the beginning, but I started being like, okay, if I want my community to be more nurtured and the way that I'd like a community to be, I
Hmm.
started first like finding the people that I felt I shared some similar travel values with. And I started reaching out. And at first, it was the comment section and just leaving very thoughtful and heartfelt comments. And then eventually, it was also on the stories. And from that, both from my part and other creators' part, we started having these conversations in the DMs. And this is where things started getting more personal and getting to know each other. And I feel that nurturing this part of, okay, there's a person behind this account that I really want to connect because they have something very similar to the things that I love of traveling,
Hmm.
of life, of everything. And with a few of those, we started actually hopping into calls and then just sometimes sharing voice notes or I don't know, going further, maybe and then eventually it goes to a conversation. I think it's very beautiful to encourage that because you can really have incredible friendships and relationships with people in this platform. And for me, that has been, it's like this, the base of everything that I do. Because I know if I can connect with somebody that way, like it's easier to do that eventually with more people in the community. And I'm always open to that, like I love having conversations that are deeper and just going beyond that. So I
Hmm.
always love when people reach out. So that's something that I love to do too. And it's always so beautiful.
Did you ever start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gaining this following? People are like paying attention to what I'm sharing. Was there ever a time when you kind of felt like a responsibility to think maybe more about what you post because people are following you? Like, what is that like?
Oh wow. I had this experience that was horrible.
Oh no.
God, well, it made me think a lot. So I at the beginning, right at the very beginning, when I actually started taking it seriously, I will never forget, but it was in April 2022. And we had gone to this beautiful place in Mexico that is very small. And I made a video and I shared it. And
Okay.
it suddenly started growing and growing and viralizing. And I'm like, no, because I was like, no, this place is not ready for having that many people potentially visit. Like it's not okay. So I need to take this down. And at some point, my boyfriend and some friends were like, no, Champi, what are you doing? Like this video is huge and you're getting so many followers and views and everything. I'm like, yes, but I don't feel okay with myself. Like it's my approach of mindful travel and everything. This is completely the other thing that I'm trying to achieve. Um, so I took it down. And from there, I realized something. I think I was starting to do more kind of content that in a way could get more views or an audience. And it really made me rethink everything that I was doing. I was like, okay, makes no sense for me to advocate for mindful travel and a more conscious travel if the content that I'm creating is not respecting that. So I feel I have this responsibility also to have a little bit more of a filter of the things that I put out there. And yeah, so that was horrible. I was really, really scared. So I took it down and I felt so much better after that.
I feel as though this career path that you have chosen, or hobby, as a travel creator holds a lot more responsibility than I think we realize. And I think that's true of anybody creating anything on the internet. Once you gain a certain, I hate the word influence. I actually don't hate it, but I don't think I have a better word for you. Once you gain a certain level of influence, it's hard not to feel as though you have some sort of responsibility to care about the people in your community. That can be something that's really challenging to balance. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, the travel content we create can have a direct effect on the local place that we are sharing about. For example, Bali. Let's talk about Bali for a moment. It is a little bit overrun with tourists. And we can't help but think that some degree has come from social media and also word of mouth and photography and all of the ways in which people share about it, blogging, the best places to go if you're a digital nomad. It's always on those lists like that. And it's like, I don't know if I have an answer for you. I don't think I do. Of what can we do to create responsibly? But there's so much to say about this. And it makes me think, it begs the question of, can you create so much content about a place like Bali, for example, that when you go there, it doesn't even feel like Bali should have felt? It feels just like a touristy city trapped in this country, in this region that is not really representative of what that experience is really supposed to be. Instead, it's just like fancy hotels and beachside accommodations. It's really interesting. And I want you to consider that when you're creating content. Like I said, I don't think I have the solution, the answer to this problem, but I think it's something to keep in mind as social media continues to just grow and grow and grow. How can we mindfully share? Maybe one of those ways is to share the specific locations of your exact content behind like a paywall. Is that the best option? I don't know, but it is a option. I think it really comes down to, what do you value as a creator? Oh, there's so many things to say, because there's a line of, I don't want to gatekeep what I have experienced with people or share with them to also have an equally amazing time. But I also want to be socially responsible. And that is a line that I think just comes down to your personal values. What do you value more? Sharing with people or protecting amazing experiences? And I think there's a way to do both. And I think you personally, that's a journey you have to go on to figure out, what do I feel good sharing about versus what do I want to protect, so that it is always this same experience and I can come back here and my followers can come back here and we will always have the same sort of set of experiences in this place, rather than it becoming overrun. Food for thought, food for thought. What are your thoughts on this? I'd love to know. You can come talk to me about it on Instagram at Travel Content Writing. Oh my gosh. I mean, I commend you for doing that, because I think a lot of people wouldn't have done that. I think a lot of people would have only thought of it from the perspective of your gain rather than what could potentially really happen. That's very interesting. I bet that situation happens a lot more than we think it does, where creators post about a place that is awesome and beautiful and amazing, but is not ready to receive, or like cannot handle the volume that could potentially come. It's really interesting, especially when we start thinking about places that are so fragile just to even visit, that's like a whole nother thing that makes me even nervous to talk about of like, should we tell people to visit these places when they're, it's called, oh, there's a word for it. Last chance tourism or something like that. It's like this phenomenon of travelers who travel to places because they don't think they're like gonna go away with climate change or they'll literally not exist anymore in the next few decades. So they want to see them now. But that's a whole nother thing. And it's like, how did we get to a place where somebody sharing about their amazing adventures is now like responsible for an entire community, like a physical place? That is not something anybody signed up to do. Nobody signed up to do that. We were just like, let me take some fun videos. Look at what I saw. And then it's like, shoot, maybe we all need like some therapy of like, listen, this is might turn into something bigger than you think, and like here's how to deal with that. But I'm not
Yeah.
qualified to give that advice. I would love to talk more about your mindful travel approach. I think that's really interesting. And this feels like a good segue because of that story. You feel so much better when you took it down because you know the potential impact that could have. What would be some ways to travel more mindfully, or what does mindful travel in your eyes really mean?
So for me, mindful travel is about you realizing that you do have an impact to wherever you go. You know, whether it's to your own city or around your own country or abroad. I think it's important to know that you will always leave something, you will leave a footprint. And the more you make it conscious, or you know, like already knowing that you're bringing with you an impact, it already makes it a little bit more mindful, like in your life, in your travels. And I always start saying that I feel that in order to do mindful travels, you have to be living a mindful life. Like it's not possible the other way around.
So good.
It doesn't work like that. You know, it's easier to, and the only way I feel it's possible is that when you start living a more mindful life in your everyday, eventually when you travel, you're going to take these things with you. And what does that mean? You know, I'm very much into mindfulness and doing meditation and reading and eating more consciously. I do a lot of these things in my daily life. And I started taking this into my travels a long time ago and being more like, okay, how do I live in my daily life? Okay, it's a lot more slower, a lot more conscious of the things I do, of what I consume. So when you go into your travels and you're trying to find this mindful approach, it's about also taking that in, being present, knowing where you are. You know, did you go to a new place? It's beautiful to read about it before, to know something about that before. Or also connect with people that are locals because they do know so much more than you could ever know about, even if reading or from videos or from other things. And I think it's very beautiful that mindful travel is not, it doesn't have like a time frame or anything. Like it can be 1 hour, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, because it's really about being more present and conscious with what you do and where you are. And I also think that having this, the possibility of travel is such a, I wouldn't say a luxury, but it is something that not everybody gets to do. And already knowing that you are able to visit new places and getting to immerse yourself in different things I would never thought possible, it's already so beautiful. And when you are conscious about this experience that you are being able to live, it already brings this different approach to it. You know, it's not just going through everything and rushing and everything. Of course, it doesn't have to do much with rushing, but it can still be, even if you're a little bit rushing through things, but you're still conscious. I think that's how I would define it.
My advice on creating content more mindfully as a traveler is to create content that you love. Everybody can tell when you are creating content just to get something out, but it will bring you so much more joy and a sense of accomplishment and a sense of peace if you are creating pieces that you truly love, because it's so much more fun. And there is always a million things to do in the creator world. You can always update something, research something, reach out to someone. It very quickly can become so overwhelming. And so if you can make the the main bulk of your content creation fun for you, your path to burnout is going to be far less urgently met than if you are just churning out content over and over. Of course, the number of reps you do will make you be better, get better, but I think there's a way to get better without hating what you're doing, because you started content creation because you loved it, not because you're here to make $1 million. Let's remember that, because there are a lot easier ways to make $1 million than doing what you're doing right now. So remember why you started doing this and let that inspire you to keep going and do it in a way that feels good. Like, why does content creation have to be such a big thing? Let's just do what feels good, right? Okay, rant over. Because you are a creator as well, how are you personally balancing, I want to travel mindfully because that's what I love to help others do, but also I am a content creator and I need to capture some sort of content. Like, that is always difficult. What do you do to try and balance those things?
So every time that we travel, I usually always travel with my boyfriend. And if we are traveling somewhere, we always, before the trip, we always define, okay, is this like a trip where we'll be creating content or not much?
That's so
Especially for
good.
him. Yeah, especially for him, because at the beginning I was more like, oh, let's create and do this and everything. And I do it quite slowly. Like, I don't cram many things into one day.
Mm-hmm.
But for him, it was really important to have these boundaries. So what we started doing was like, okay, before we travel, and if it's going to be a content trip or a trip that we take content of, we divide certain times throughout the day or the days that we're going to be there. Usually, we love recording early mornings or in the afternoons because of the light.
Mm-hmm.
So we normally do that. We're like, okay, we know what we need or what are the things that we're looking for in this trip. So let's put them in like a schedule or something. And we always put our priorities. And if we feel that it's okay and we don't want any more, we don't do the rest. So I think it's really about planning, because it has happened to me when we don't at all. And already in the trip, it's so overwhelming because there's so many things happening and you want to capture everything, and it's not okay. I don't think it's very healthy either, because you're not really enjoying. So you're just thinking about what you can create and everything. So I really think like planning beforehand is incredible if you want to have a more like a slower time and a more mindful time and time to just be there, and enjoy the time that you have in your trip.
I think you've cracked the code. I think it's just planning ahead of time and like thinking about what are the goals of this trip. That's so interesting because I think you're so right. So many creators just every trip they go on is going to be an opportunity to create content, whether it's a family vacation or it's actually for work. And it can be, especially when you have like a creative mind, it can be so hard to turn it off and not think about, oh my gosh, that what I'm looking at right now would be so beautiful to capture. I have a million ideas, but we can't be doing that all the time. It's just like detrimental.
It is exhausting. And because you're exactly like a creative mind is just constantly working. And then, yeah, no, I have realized like for me, this doesn't work. I really need to know and plan, because I'm usually a very calm person. And when this happens, it's like this overload thing. And I'm like so overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that because I have tried to ask other creators, like, what are your tips to try and balance this, just enjoying the place where you are versus capturing content? And they're like, sometimes I do this and sometimes I do that, but that it makes sense just to start from the beginning and really kind of force yourself to not capture anything because your whole life doesn't have to be on camera. And someday you'll look back and probably be glad that that's the case, but oh well.
yeah, and we do like this every time that we're traveling somewhere and it's a travel content trip, sorry. My boyfriend at the beginning started asking me like, okay, can you make a mood board for me of the things that you'd like to capture or the kind of vibe that you're going for. And
Wow, can we all take lessons from your boyfriend? Can everybody's
yeah, oh my God, he's amazing. Like he's such a mindful person and very, I don't know the word, but it's incredible. So I was like, okay, this is a great thing to do, and it has helped us so much. Because then we also arrived to place and we're like, okay, I know what you want. I know the things that we're going to be kind of recording or taking photographs at. So it speeds up a little bit the process in a way that you already know what you're looking for. And it's great.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing to have. Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. Maybe he should start his own Mexico travel creator journey and you can coach
I
him.
always tell him like you should definitely start doing something, and he's such a good photographer. Like most of the photos that are on my Instagram page and everything are taken by him. Like all of the ones that I'm on it, it's always him. He's so good, but he's also like no, he doesn't like social media. He doesn't like this and this. I'm like okay, maybe one day.
If you do not have a Champy's boyfriend, that's okay. You can take care of yourself. You got this. But here is some stuff you can put on your to-do list. I'm so sorry. Before your trip to make your life a lot easier, I would recommend choosing days of your trip where you're capturing content. Also choosing get very specific on your shot list and all those things. And once you take those shots, be done. Even you can go as far as setting a limit for yourself of, okay, I'm going to take a photo posing with this thing. And then you will allow yourself to take 2 photos and that's it, rather than taking 10 of the same shot and then later spending more time choosing the one that is perfect. I would also give yourself a day ahead of your trip to research, plan, get really specific on what you want to capture so that when you get to your destination, there's no guessing of what you want to go and do. You have it all laid out already. And I would lean on AI for this kind of thing. That can be incredibly helpful and obviously speed up the time you spend planning the content you're going to capture. Okay, you mentioned a long time ago, so if this isn't relevant anymore, you can let me know, but you try to post about what you love no matter how you think it will perform, which I again think is really powerful. Is that one still relevant and true? How has that gone? Do you feel like this is something you will forever approach?
I do. I realized something when I was going into this content creator thing, that if you don't post the things that you like and the things that you're happy about putting out there, it can lead to such a burnout because I feel like you'll never be able to cut up with the algorithm and everything that's around the platform. And when you post more things that make sense to you, that you love putting out there, the outcome of them, it's of course it's still there, like you wanting them to perform well, but it's not the same way when you just put something for how it will perform. So I definitely do. I've started to have like this kind of a balance. I know that there's certain things that will perform better, but I've done it in the way that I like them. So I've found this kind of approach to things. I still put a lot of things that I know, like I know that this first video and the text that's in it, it's not gonna do well, but I love how it turned out, so I'm just gonna put it out. So I think it's
Yeah.
just this balance, and it's definitely something that I still do. And sometimes I do, there's this really interesting time for me of the year, which is October, all of October. It's always the time where my videos just flow. Like they start seen by so many people. I always assume it's because it's like Day of the Dead content. So it's really funny because it doesn't matter what I put out there during October, it always works. And so I'm
Wow.
always, it's really crazy and I don't know why, but I love it because then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do what feels right for me. And I know it's gonna do great. So I love this time. It's like this really fun time for me to just put anything out there. But yeah, so it's just a balance, I think. But definitely,
Wow.
I would always say like you need to create the content that you love and that you're proud of to put out there if you want this to be something that lasts for years, because if not,
Mm-hmm.
what's the point then on it?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yep. I think we can all tell when we're watching something. someone created that they're just kind of posting this to post or because they told themselves they were going to post today or whatever times a week. And they just posted because they're filling that gap rather than posting something that they are actually jazzed about. You can tell we're all smart enough now to realize and understand what's really happening. But I love that it's also a way to get you out of burnout or prevent you from going down that spiral, which is so easy to go down because there are 1 million things to do. You can always be editing or updating or doing something. When you do experience burnout, what do you try to do, I guess, from a mindful approach to either get yourself out of it or even, I guess, prevent it from happening? I just would love to talk more about burnout with you because I feel like you have all the answers.
Well, I've definitely experienced a lot of burnout, especially when I, for some reason, decide that I'm not going to listen to my inner voice and then just, I don't know, put more things out there that align with algorithm things.
Yeah.
And it's horrible because then I think it's even worse when you put something out there for how it will perform. Like you're putting out there for how it might perform, and it doesn't perform the way you want it to or the way it was supposed to perform. And then so you just start like ruminating and endlessly, like what did I do wrong? What can I change? Should I take it down and put it again? Or maybe this and this and this. And it's the burnout is so real when you do these things or when you're trying to perfect a video that you want to put out there. Um, and I have learned that whenever this starts happening to me, I usually cut myself doing it after I've done it. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, I am in this stage right now. I think it's good to just take a step back and reassess what I'm doing again. Why am I putting this content out there? Like, does this align with the values that I'm trying to create in this platform? If it doesn't, then just don't do it. Just don't
Hmm.
do it. And then even if it takes like a break, sometimes for me, I do like to take breaks. That's another huge thing. I like to take breaks when I feel like my creativity is not the way I like it to. And it's also very natural, like we have these phases in our lives. Like we're not going to be forever creative and making the best content out there all the time. Like we need times to rest, we need times to nurture ourselves, to take it slower, because then if we don't have these times, the creativity or the beautiful content that aligns with us is not going to come. Like it's impossible. Or if it does, you'll be in such a burnout that it's a very horrible phase to go through. I feel a lot of people really do go through burnouts, but I think it's also kind of natural, but
Hmm.
I need to learn how to take a step back and be like, okay, what is it that I need right now? Firstly, for myself, for my person, which I think also a lot of people, I've met some people where their pages and their content and everything is the priority. And I'm like, okay, it's great because it's your business and everything, but I think the priority is yourself. And if you
Hmm.
don't take care of yourself first, then everything is going to spill out and you're going to see that in your content, you're going to see that in your business. And it's just about taking a step back when you think it has already hit.
You know what will last longer than the next social media trend? Your mental health. Ooh. Mm-hmm. So you got to show up for yourself before you show up for other people. And that is why in 2025, I am adopting airplane rules. You know, I know you've been on an airplane. They tell you to put your own mask on before somebody else's. Okay. If the FDA, the federal government, tells me to take care of myself before taking care of other people, enough said. I know they don't always have things right over here, but perchance they could be right on this sentiment. You will last longer than your content, so you have to take care of yourself and you have to make it fun. You have to make it fun. So, are you going to join me on adopting airplane rules in 2025? I think that's so, so fun. If you are, I posted a reel actually about it, and the people have loved it so far. So if you want to know a little bit more about airplane rules and why I'm adopting them as my mindset for the new year, that's on my gram. There's so many things you can read online and look at that tell you how other people have built these amazing content businesses and things like that. And the perspective is from the outside. Oh my gosh, they've put in so many hours, which is true. This is all true. But there's a lot of information out there that, oh my gosh, you have to work 16 hours a day. You have to work like up all night, all of these things. And I'm a huge believer that you can build a massive business while being like a normal human and not have to do it in this like broy, gross, up all night, working super late and stressing yourself out way, because that will literally make you ill.
Mhm.
Because we know it's possible. Other people have done it and they will have wildly more success. But that mindset, I think, is sometimes difficult for creators to adopt, that it doesn't have to be so horrible. It's hard work. Takes a long time and it is difficult, but it doesn't have to make you hate what you're doing. It doesn't have to be so broy, and so there's easier, not necessarily easier, but there's different ways to approach it to make it not so feel like you have to put in everything in your power to get it done. And then they forget that rest is required and is not a reward. And then all of a sudden, you're like, why am I even doing this anyway? And I think a big reality check of like, listen, we kind of maybe should be doing bigger things than like making videos sometimes. That's fun. That's cool. But will you actually remember the places you traveled to with like your own eyes rather than like looking through your camera? So many things there, so many things.
But it's so true. And I also think like a lot of this kind of burnout that I've especially seen with a lot of people that I've connected with, it's going back to the planning thing. I really think it also helps a lot when you plan yourself, because then you're not just winging it or just being like, okay, I'm gonna do this tomorrow or something, and oh, I don't have the content for it, but I wanted to do this. So then you stress out. So I really think like planning is such a huge thing, not only
Totally.
for content creation, but for everything you do, because
Yeah.
it just makes life easier.
It does. Do you plan your content out on like a weekly basis, on like a monthly basis? What does that look like for you? Is it different all the time?
I love planning. I can stay planning forever. And another thing, my boyfriend always makes fun of me because I have planned content for now until 6 months later. I I love it. And it's just about, it's like ideas that come to my mind. I love writing. I love just getting inspiration. And everything that gets into my mind, I write it down. And then during the weekend or one day that I have more time off, I just structure kind of them a little bit and then put them in a calendar. And
Hmm.
I have so many ideas. And sometimes not all of them happen. Sometimes I'll be like, oh no, next week there's actually this thing and I would love to do something different. So that's what happens. I have so much content that it gets pushed out.
Yeah.
So that's why I have so many things for the future. But it's
Oh
it's
my
always
gosh.
difficult because I feel there's, at least for me, I have like I'm a very calm person in many ways, but I also have so much energy. And I found that writing things down and having this like planned and structured helps me so much. So I'm always just writing things down and new ideas. Or I saw this video and it inspired me to do something similar.
Hmm.
Oh wow, there's always things. And I feel it's wonderful to also write them down, because if not, you also forget them. Like there's so many things happening all the time in our minds that if you don't write them down, I think it's like there's opportunities of things that could be created.
Okay, I have so many questions. This is really interesting. Are you writing them down, and like where are they going? Are they going in a physical notebook? Are you putting them in some software online? Where are your ideas living?
I always carry with me a small notebook all the time, because ideas sometimes just come and I love
Hmm.
physically writing them down.
Yeah.
But then I also sometimes I forget a lot of things. So I forget that I have my notebook, and so I write them down in the notes on my phone.
Yeah.
And then once I have all of these ideas, I love using the app Notion.
Yep.
Amazing. And that's where I have everything. Like I have everything. I have a calendar, and then I have like this block of notes and just having ideas, literally like this folder of ideas. I develop them, and once they're done, like there's this in process and to do and
Yeah.
process and done.
I
And then
love it.
whenever they're done, I'm like, okay, time to put them in the calendar. So it's like I really love planning and being structured, because naturally, as a human, I'm not structured and planned and very rational at all. So I need this, and it has really it really helps me. So yeah, that's the
Oh
way.
my gosh. I love this. Okay, when you're creating the content and you're almost ready to move it to your done section to go on the calendar, are you spending, I don't know, is there like one day a week where you're like, I'm gonna go into my Notion here and look at what I have to create? And do you just create it all at once, or do you kind of just do like one idea and then you'll come back and do it later? How does that work?
So normally I have like in my calendar, for example, I'll have everything for now until the end of December already.
Hmm.
Kind of like I have not the whole captions of things that I want to
Sure.
create, but they have like an outline. Then I start seeing like, okay, I need what kind of content for which thing. So I'll start looking for it. I have in my Instagram, I also have a lot of like very structured things in my Instagram, a lot of folders of like trending music, music that is fun, music that has to do with Mexico, inspiration folder, videos that I loved.
Hmm.
And so I start doing like this research. Okay, is there any song that inspires me? And maybe it's not for next week's reel, but I love this music for the one in 2 weeks. So I'm gonna move that one for next week. So it's like, I don't know, like playing around and seeing things. But I normally have captions written for 2 weeks in advance. And reels, I usually do them on Mondays. I have this time where I just create
Yeah.
2 reels. I normally post one every week, sometimes two if I feel like really excited about things. But yeah, I do that, and I normally create them like on Mondays, and yeah, that's how that's how it works.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. You, yeah, should maybe like teach a course on that or something. That's like so cool.
And
Yeah, I
I
mean,
love the process. Oh my God. And something that I really have to do, like to stop myself, because I could just stay creating content all day, but there's other
mhm.
things I need to do and other parts of my work and everything. But if it was for me, I would just create forever. Like it's really fun.
My last question for you. What would you say to a creator who is just starting out? Maybe they have been posting about their travels for a while, but now they really want to take it seriously. What advice would you give them?
I would say two things. When I first started, I was like, okay, I'm going to share about my travels. I don't know if it will be something very specific or just broad. And I think the first thing is just starting. Start posting, start sharing your content, not really thinking much about how it might perform, but start just putting things out there. Because the more you start sharing, the more you start creating, the more you start writing, you will become better at it. And then you will also start to find this style that you like to share about. And not necessarily, I feel that you have to have a very niche down travel account since the beginning. If you do and you know what you want to do, amazing. But also, it's something that you will start finding eventually. I feel like definitely I started sharing mine and I didn't know it had anything to do with mindful travel. Eventually, I realized, like, oh, wow, okay, there's
Mhm.
this very specific thing that I'm sharing. So definitely, this is my thing. And the other is what I always say is like to share the things that you love. Share as much as you love if you actually want to make this part of your life and your career and your business, because it's one of the I think it's one of the most beautiful things to do, to just share what you're really passionate about, what really creates this spark in you. Because if it does for you, it's easier that I will do to somebody else and to the rest of the people in the app and the community that you want to build. And I'd say another one, also build that community. Like be very, very mindful about connecting with the people that are being in your community, because it's about nurturing these relationships and getting to know more the people behind the accounts and the people just seeing your videos, because there's also so many people that sometimes will never comment, sometimes will never do anything, but they're very much there and they're very engaged. And the
Totally.
ways that you can do something to nurture that is so beautiful. And I think is the best part of having an account in social media.
Where do you want people to find you, to follow you, to connect with you?
I am very active on Instagram most of the time at Champi Travels. And that's basically the channel that I use most. And I would love to connect with people there. I'm always open for conversations, for anything Mexico related, mindful related. And it's been wonderful to connect here. So thank you so much for this space also.
If you have a grand content plan for the new year, awesome. If you don't, also awesome, because we know things are going to change, and I encourage you not to put so much pressure on yourself. And in fact, why don't you just post? Go for the vibes, okay? There is a difference between vibes and strategic on-brand vibes. Go with those. Go with the strategic on-brand vibes. By that, I mean, don't scare your audience with something crazy. Like if you've been posting about luxury and then you're like, I'm going to fly EasyJet with a personal item, that is jarring. Wow, don't do that. But you can get more real. We love behind the scenes, as I have said so many times on this podcast. But just post. What if you did like 1 week? 1 week of scrapping what you're going to share and just going for the vibes. If anybody does this, please let me know. That'd be a fantastic experiment. Maybe I'll try it personally. But holy smokes, what a good time I had with Champi. She's just a gem, just an absolute gem. You can find her on Instagram at Champi Travels, CHAMPI Travels, all one word. She has fabulous resources if you're heading to Mexico. Oh my goodness. And I'm going to shout out her, thank her for being on the podcast. And I wish you the happiest of creating, okay? Go post what you want to post. I'll see you next week.